Of them in the video just a minute ago, and those that you saw were doing some very important things for the United States of America. You saw airmen in that video who were securing, operating, and maintaining our ready ICBM force. And it's their dedication, along with the dedication of the rest of those in the nuclear enterprise, that form the basis of this nation's strategic deterrent. That's an important mission for us. I think all of you know that. And as I tell our people every day, perfection is the standard. You also saw airmen in that video who conduct satellite, space launch, and other space operations. This command wields capabilities that enable our joint commanders to know more about their adversaries, to see the battlefield more clearly, and to strike more quickly and precisely than ever before. Space capabilities provide intelligence that would otherwise be lost, warning that would otherwise be undetected, and communications that would otherwise be impossible. Space is no longer just the high ground. It is an integral part of the joint fight. Today, space capabilities are embedded in a complex of systems that serve forces and commanders at every level and that span the entire spectrum of diplomatic, informational, military, and economic activities. And they do so from peace through crisis and war. Today in Air Force Space Command, we are clearly active participants in the joint fight that we are waging in overseas contingency operations. The capabilities we present have shaped the American way of warfare. You also saw airmen in the video who operate in cyberspace, with all the opportunities and challenges that suggests, and who will soon pick up lead command responsibility for the United States Air Force cyberspace activities. And we're really excited about what's happening to Air Force Space Command. I think most of you know that we have made some decisions in our Air Force that directly impact this command. For example, we will move the ICBM force out of Air Force Space Command and into a new command that we are standing up called Air Force Global Strike Command. We are also moving lead command responsibilities for cyberspace into Air Force Space Command and standing up an operational command for cyberspace within Air Force Space Command. These are exciting times for sure. We're taking decisive steps to position resources and people to meet the challenges that America will encounter in the vital domains of space and cyberspace. Now, I'm reminded that newsman David Brinkley once remarked that he was worried that we may be approaching the point where we have more people willing to make speeches than we have people willing to listen to them. I hope that's not the case here this morning. In fact, I was standing in the restroom a couple of minutes ago before I came in here. That's enough. That's all I have to say about that, except I think you all know that you don't make a lot of eye contact in those venues. And so someone standing nearby said, gee, I hope the guest speaker is good this morning. And I said, I hope so too. So we'll see. As of a couple of minutes ago, I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to say. So let's see what happens. I need to thank the Space Foundation, Elliot, you and your team, once again, for bringing us together here in Colorado Springs to discuss all of the important issues that we have in the National Space Enterprise. I'm a little intimidated to follow the panel that you just had because I want to talk this morning about the theme of the conference as well, and that's the next space age. I think at the 25th anniversary of the Space Foundation, it's important and fitting for us to have that conversation. No question about it. Our world has changed drastically thanks to the accomplishments of the first space age. Now, I've had people describe to me before that, we're already in the third space age, or, they describe the early efforts versus the shuttle. I'm not going to do that. Let's just call everything that's happened till today the first space age, and let's take the theme of this conference from today forward and say that's the next one. That's easy enough for a guy like me to understand. And so that's what I'll want to talk to you about here for the next couple. A very key role throughout the first space age. Just to name a few examples, the space launch vehicles that formed the basis of the later Mercury flights and all of the Gemini flights came off of the drawing boards of General Benny Strieber's team at the Western Development Division, today the Space and Missile Systems Center in Los Angeles. Commercial satellite communications advanced in a great many ways due to the work done on military satellite communications, also at SNC. And of course, no one questions today the value of GPS to the entire world. In fact, I would offer GPS has become its own word. It's no longer an acronym. People talk about GPS. It's a noun. Sometimes it's a verb. It might even be an adjective. Who knows? But when you get that kind of positioning, my corporate friends would tell me, you've got something. Now, people don't always understand that that's the U.S. Air Force that does that. And so I like to stand up and remind people of that. Not because we're looking for a pat on the back, but because I think our contributions to the nation and to the world in space are often down farther in the list, maybe, of accomplishments than they should be. So looking at the next space age, it's important to us in the Air Force, not only because space is important to national security, but because we know that once again we will play a key role, albeit a different role, I suggest, in the future as we develop the next space age. Now at this point I was going to haul out of a nice box up here a crystal ball, and I was going to tell you what the crystal ball told us the next space age would be like. Unfortunately, my aide has left our crystal ball back in the office, and so not my fault, of course. It's never your fault when you're forced to. That's the way that works. But even if we had brought the crystal ball, I don't think we could have gotten it to tell us all the things that we're going to need to know as we get after the issues of this next space age. So it's probably better that I didn't bring it. No one can define with certainty what the next space age will look like. So let's take a couple of minutes and do this the old-fashioned way. Let's do it the way we planners tend to want to do it. Let's look at the trends that we see and might then look at how those trends might influence the way we need to go in the future, and then we'll audit that against some of the things that I think we ought to be thinking about as we go to the future. So let's start by looking at some global space and cyberspace trends. We've come a long way from the middle of the 20th century, when the space race began between the Soviet Union and the U.S. And by the way, I think we can all be thankful that we've come a long way from that point in time. The Cold War ended, and again, thankfully, it ended peacefully, which was the objective all along. But during that time, many of you in this room will remember the requirement that formed the basis of the first space age was win the space race at any cost. We invested a large amount of national treasure to do just that. We weren't quite sure where we were headed, but we had a group of visionaries who recognized the scientific, technical, and yes, the national security potential that was to be gained from space. We knew that it was the high ground, and we knew we had to establish our presence. We recognized the national security challenges we faced in the Cold War. We confronted a large superpower with nuclear arms. They threatened our national survival. There were important areas and activities that we needed to observe without hindrance. There were the very high likelihood that surprise attack could occur. The enemy was deployed over global distances and threatened us in many places, and of course, our number one task was strategic deterrence.